speaking of performative art, as some people may have referred to it, when Pauline Hanson wore a burqa into the Senate before the chamber rose for the year in 2025, Senator Hanson copped a 7-day suspension for that. It was called a stunt. She's done it twice before. I have some sympathy for Pauline when she tries to do this, because having sat in the Senate with her constantly, any motion that she puts up, regardless of its merit, is blocked by the Greens and Labor and the so-called independents that always vote with the left-wing parties in the Senate. And whether you like Pauline or not, she has a reasonable chunk of the vote and her support is increasing across the nation. And I do think it is fair that her views, her input in the motions that she puts up should at least be given the respect to be debated. And yet again, when she did call out for the burqa to be banned, it was blocked in the Senate and no debate could take place. But she was then given a 7-day suspension with the faux horror that was then projected by leaders of all the major parties in the parliament, disrespecting the parliament. Senator Hanson's now written to Prime Minister Albanese asking for that to be lifted so that when debate resumes, as Parliament's recalled early, with regards to the new hate laws that need to be debated, that she should be able to participate. And I got to say, I think that's fair enough. I think as democracy goes, a 7-day suspension is one thing, but when you have an extraordinary circumstance that leads to extraordinary calling back of Parliament early, any of those things I think should be lifted, and every parliamentarian should be given the opportunity to speak, because at the end of the day, big chunk of Australians voted for her and deserve her voice to be heard in this debate.
Chunk.
And it will be an increasing chunk of voters.
Yeah, that's right. Look, I agree. I have some empathy for her. My frustration comes from the fact that, yes, I can see that it was a performative stunt, but the conversation then moves from the public going, oh, there's Pauline doing that thing, you know, how disrespectful to a religious garment. But the conversation actually should have been that she was trying to protest that her bill she put up was not allowed to be debated.
And this was every bill she puts up, every bill.
Absolutely. But then, because then she does that, that's what makes the headlines, and everyone just kind of rolls their eyes and goes, oh, there's Pauline doing that again. So that's frustrating. I want to ask, as the ex-senator here, the suspension on her, that 7-day suspension was obviously put on her by the Senate. She's written to the Prime Minister. Does he have that authority to intervene on disciplinary action with the Senate? They're two separate houses.
It would have to go back to the Senate and the presiding officers. So the President of the Senate would have to then bring it back to the Senate. It would, look, not being sitting there with the, I don't have my Senate handbook and standing orders here anymore, but it would have to be re-voted on by the Senate, because the Senate voted for the suspension, so it would have to be lifted that way, unless it was considered a special joint sitting or something that occurred.
I also just think it's really ironic that the bill Pauline Hanson was trying to put up was warning about the dangers of these face coverings, which I think is a very legitimate concern. Many countries around the world have banned the full face covering. And then a couple weeks after that, we did have a radical Islamic terror attack that has rocked our nation. Now we've got the Parliament voting on a legislative response to that radical Islamic terror attack, but because she was too eager to call it out and performed a stunt, she won't be able to vote on it. I mean, it does not make sense to me on any level. This is completely undemocratic. And also, how many Greens MPs have worn a keffiyeh into Parliament? How many times have they protested?
Sarah Hanson-Young holding up the fish, the dead fish.
And do they get suspended? Do they get removed from
Rex Patrick used to come in dressed as a koala. Like, honestly, I mean, at the end of the day, there is a really strong anti-Pauline sentiment, and I have always been uncomfortable with the response through the coalition parties. Is their almost knee-jerk reaction fear to support anything Pauline does? There were a number of motions she brought when I was there, one including with regards to babies born alive through the abortion process, which occurs. It went to a conscience vote within the Liberal Party, and there were a few of us that were there supporting Pauline, and there were colleagues of mine sitting opposite. Voting with the Greens and Labor. Same when it came to her motion with regards to children being puberty blockers. it was blocked on that immediate sense. And again, a conscience vote was given to the Liberals so that some could go and vote with Labor and the Greens. And I have always found that very unsettling. I never liked it. I was hoping when Michaelia came in as leader of the Senate that she might have got tougher on the parliamentary Senate team, that it wouldn't be a matter of conscience vote, that those sorts of principles and values are something that the Liberal Party does uphold, but there seems to be a knee-jerk reaction against Pauline, and I think it's backfiring on the coalition across the board.
It is, and it's just pathetic.